Out there in space, scattered around the twinkling stars, were planets, big and small and tranquil and wild. Hidden away was a lonely planet, the loneliest planet of them all, protected by ferocious storms and force fields that could stop the impossible. Nobody lived on the deserted world. But a little old shack that stood at the foot of a great mountain. There lived a little baby, Blue was her name, and her very best friend. The monster that slept under her bed had been with her ever since she was born. Whenever she cried, the monster would cry too. As she grew up, the monster and her, they would laugh and play. The monster would look after her every day. They would never get hungry, for food was plentiful. Every week the cupboards in the little kitchen would mysteriously restock themselves with food, with fruit sweeter than the most sugary treats, and drinks that were ever so refreshing. But Blue always knew there was something else. Whoever left them the food would always leave behind a box wrapped up as a present. The monster would always hide the contents of the box away from her, and would open them secretly under her bed once she fell asleep. Blue always suspected the monster was up to something, and as soon as she hit her teenage years, the trust and the love that the two had shared over the past 13 years began to fade away. She would always be cautious of the monster. She began to slowly fear him. Years and years went by, and the two would argue, always, and the monster would send her to her room. It was the very first time the monster had ever raised its voice at Blue, and once had heard her shut the door so very loudly, and once it was sure Blue wouldn't be able to hear him, the monster would always drop down in the darkest corner of the shack. There it would silently sit and cry, and cry, and cry, all because of a little present. The monster always tried its best to convince Blue that the present was just that, a present, but it would never show her what was inside. It would always guard the closet where it kept the presents. By the age of 20, all love was lost between Blue and the monster. Blue was always suspicious, and the monster was always quiet. No more laughing, no more playing, and the monster's heart began to break. Blue awoke one morning to find the monster sleeping quietly on the floor. Her curiosity forced her to open the closet. She did so and looked inside the boxes. Inside all of them she found empty syringes and a manual with instructions. She read the title of the manual, and then her heart broke too. All these years they spent fighting, all those silly arguments. Now she knew why the monster hid it from her. It knew she wouldn't be able to handle the news. The monster could never stand to see Blue cry. The monster could never tell her what was going on, but now she knew. The monster was dying, slowly and painfully. The monster always injected himself with extended life, the presence the mysterious person always left. It knew that these silly injections didn't work, but it always did it in hope. Blue then realized at that moment that the monster was not sleeping on the floor. The only place it would ever sleep was under her bed. It wasn't asleep. It had died many hours ago. And in its final moments, the monster had clutched in his hands a little drawing that Blue did when she was little. The monster and Blue, forever.